Great. Today I have a special guest with me, wonderful guy by the name of David Goodfellow, doing some fantastic things in the world. I thought it would be absolutely amazing to get David to join us today and share. If you're not already subscribed, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/, ready for dreams, nice and easy, and be inspired. David, how are you? Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, I'm having a good day so far. How are you doing over there?
Phenomenal. It's a great time. There's a lot happening in the world. There's a lot going on. Staying very positive and productive, and trying to encourage very even positive vibes as always. And this is why I thought it'd be great to have you on the show. We've trained together, martial arts and so on. A student at Eddie Cohn, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, EKBJJ, and that's how we met. And then more recently, you've done some fantastic. Gave some fantastic assistance to a friend of mine who runs a charity. But I would like to just leave it to you to share who you are and what you've been up to. And then I'll go into the group and ask some questions. People will surely ask some questions, and I'll let you know what they are.
Do you want me to talk about the recent project or give you a bit of history for how the project started? How far back do you want me to go?
Well, I want you to go way back to the beginning because
Okay.
what? Talk to us about the phone whisperer. Who's Rob? Talk to us about that, and how do we get a free pizza at the end of this?
Wow. Okay. Right. These are fantastic questions. All right. Back in 2006 or seven, around that time, I noticed a friend of mine could do something that was a bit special. He could make phone calls and he'd phone people up and have really pleasant conversations. I'd listen to him and, very friendly, very gentle, very to the point. And something weird would happen on these phone calls. He'd want something, so some tickets to the Rolling Stones or a hard drive fixed, a really kind of wide variety of things that he wanted to accomplish in his life. And people would just help him out on the telephone after a telephone call. And I'd watch him do this. And then I started asking him if he could do it for me, because I wanted to go somewhere for free, or I didn't have enough money to have something that I wanted. So I started asking him if he would, do this. And I coined the phrase phone whisperer. He was the phone whisperer, like the horse whisperer or the ghost whisperer. And eventually we reached a point where I said to him, listen, this is a pretty wild thing that you do here. Would you mind teaching myself and a couple of other guys how you do what you do? And he agreed. And then he came over. I lived in this little cottage in West Hampstead at the time. And he gave the world's first ever phone whispering class. And he explained from start to finish what he does in his mind to get ready before he picks up a telephone, and exactly how he approaches and how he thinks about the other person on the end of the line and the kind of feelings he wants to put down the telephone. And he explained it all. And then at the end, he got a telephone directory, yellow pages, and he threw it on the table and he said, pick a number and I'll do it for you. And I said, all right. So we went through and we picked a local Domino's pizza, and he called them up and he had the conversation exactly in line with the techniques that he had been discussing with us. And he hung up. We couldn't hear the other side of the call, but he's like, okay, now we just have to wait. And it was a long 30 minutes. And then the doorbell rang and the delivery guy came and he handed the pizza over, and we looked at this pizza and looked at the guy and he said, all right, thank you, bye. And off he went. And there was this pizza, and it kind of it blew our minds. And it was having been involved in tens of thousands of phone calls since then, it was a pretty risky thing that he did, because it's kind of like saying, I'm good at golf, and what I'm going to do to prove to you that I'm good at golf is pass me the club and I'll hit a hole in one in the first strike. Because it doesn't always happen that on the first phone call you get what you kind of need to have happen. But that was a piece of magic. That was a kind of, there was a geometry of cosmic alignment. I don't know what you want to call it, but that moment sparked a fire in everyone who was watching him do that. So we spent a long time on the telephone trying to be phone whisperers, but we were terrible at phone whispering. We didn't get anything for free. We were awful at it. A lot like training jiu-jitsu. I'm awful at jiu-jitsu. I hope one day I'm not awful, but right now I am. But you try and try and try for those special moments where you kind of learn something. And after a couple of months, I managed to get a free pizza. And then other guys around me, we all started to get free pizzas. And kaboom, it was like this renaissance. And we got this map out, and we had all the local places that delivered food, and we started having these conversations with people that were kind of abstract and a little odd. And lots of free food started to come, and then we started to go to nightclubs, and we started to go to things like the ballet, which we'd never been to, and football matches and things that we would never go to because we wouldn't spend the money on them. But now it was like, okay, you want to practice? We'll phone these guys, phone those guys. And we got really good. We got so good that our friends and family started to notice us in the same way that I'd noticed Rob. And then we started to get requests like, could you do this for me? Could you do that for my friend? And all the rest of it. So we started to do that. And that then climaxed in a conversation that we were having around the kitchen table. And that conversation was around ideas about karma, about charity, about what it is to be a good person, how people should react to kindness, what's the right level to be nice to people at. Can you be too nice? Does it create dependence? It was quite, an in-depth discussion. And while we were having this discussion, we looked around where we were at the time, and we saw all this stuff that we'd got for free. We're like, we're in a pretty unique position here to do a kind of social experiment. What if we just gave anyone everything they ever wanted? Just went and asked them, what do you want? What do you want? We just gave it to them. And so that's when that night we decided to do an experiment. We called ourselves What's Your Problem was our original name. We were going to go and ask people, what's your problem, and solve that problem.
You got to be careful how you say that and who you
right.
say it to.
You know what I mean? Well, luckily there was a dear friend of mine who passed away. He was in the room, and he was like, you can't go around calling yourself that. People are going to think you're nut jobs, right? And they already think you're crazy, so you can't do that. So from that conversation came the name, which we still have to this day, the kindness offensive, because we still have the spirit of what's your problem, but kind of we're going to go out and we're going to do kindness in a kind of almost like a military parade kind of thing. So we put on high-vis jackets, and there's a whole story why we had matching high-vis jackets. Maybe I'll save that for another podcast kind of thing. But yeah, we went out into the world, and we started to stop people on Hampstead Heath and local Heath to where I live, and say, hey, what would you like? What would you like? And we started to collect people's wishes. Like one girl wanted a box of chocolates for her grandmother. Another guy needed some help painting his house. There was a whole list of things. And so we went back on Monday. That was a Sunday. Went back on a Monday, and we've done what we've been doing for weeks. We called up companies and we explained, we met this guy on the weekend and he needs this, and we met this girl, and the best one was this guy called Chris. He had just been made unemployed, and he was very stressed out about having a birthday party for his daughter. She was turning, I think, 11 or 12 at the time, and it was kind of a big deal. And he was a bit like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I haven't got any money to hold her a proper party, and it was kind of really heartfelt. So we started making lots of phone calls, and we set out originally to maybe do, we thought it'd be interesting to do 1, 2, maybe 3. We thought that might be a thing. But by the time we reached Friday, we'd gone down to everybody we'd met, and we got them whatever they wanted. So there's one kid who wanted an electric guitar. We got him a beautiful red electric guitar, all this stuff. And then we started to go, and we phoned these people up, and we said, I remember us, we're the crazy people from the hill you met last week, and you wanted this, we've got it, can we come and meet you? And we went to meet these people, and I don't know, we had a very strange experience. It was suddenly things like cinema tickets or trainers or guitars, these objects, these things suddenly became super emotional. And literally, like, we were handing this stuff over to people, and we filmed a lot of it. We started filming it after the second thing because we realized this is some crazy stuff that's going on here. But people started weeping. They started hugging. They were like, didn't know that there was anyone in the world who would ever do anything nice for me. And, I've been depressed, and all this kind of emotion started to come out of people, and people kind of adding it up to their own spiritual experiences, and then being inspired to go. This weird bubble was created. And then on that first event, on that first time we did it, we hooked up Chris, the guy I told you about. We got the Moscow State Circus to give him and his daughter 12 ringside seats. But on top of that, they said, listen, why don't they come in before the performance, and they can spend a couple of hours training with the clowns and going on the big safety nets, jumping up and down and doing all that kind of stuff. So we went along, and people talk about, I'm going to run away with a circus. And we looked at all this because I was a bit nervous, I'll be honest with you, on that night before Chris's party, because I'm like, what if this doesn't work? What if they're just like, no, sorry, like we can't do this. And so I wanted to be there, and so did the other guys. And the only reason I wanted to be there was to make sure it happened. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, no matter what, we're going to get this guy into this place. Even if I've got to buy the whole arena, I'm going to do it, because I don't want him to turn up with his daughter and be let down because of our social experiment kind of thing. But we were there and it went really well. And on that occasion, the circus ran away with us. And suddenly it became this crazy thing. And we were like, we went from being a couple guys doing just this experiment, and we were suddenly like an organization with beneficiaries who were like crazy about us and posting on the internet. The BBC started to hunt us down because we didn't have a website or a Twitter handle or anything. So literally like journalists were looking for us. And this huge thing started kind of almost by accident kind of thing. And there were 4 of us, and then people were finding us because there were pictures of us leaving our house, and people had worked out what our house looked like. And they were literally like doing the whole Sherlock Holmes things to hunt us down. And some people wanted stuff from us. We were getting knocks on the door from people who wanted stuff, but we also, most people wanted to join us. They were like, next time you do that, can I do it with you? And then people started to ask us for quite big things. And so the thing kind of blew up when a soup kitchen asked us to fill their cupboards because they didn't have enough stuff. And we said to them, well, how much do you need? And they went, oh, we can have whatever you get, we can take. So we phone whispered a whole lorry load of food. And it turns out these guys didn't mean what they said, or they didn't really understand what we could do. Or we didn't really understand it either. They thought we might come with a load of carrier bags kind of thing, or a boot of a car. And they couldn't handle the lorry. So the lorry ended up getting dumped into my house. And it took us about 7 hours to unload. And the neighbors, we blocked the whole street with the articulated lorry. And there's actually a news item called "The Kindness Offensive Begins" on the BBC website, because in the middle of that, the BBC found us. They've been hunting for us. And so a camera crew turned up in the middle of this completely crazy scenario where our house was completely just couldn't move. We were like this in the house because there were boxes. And that's when the whole lid blew off of it, basically. And we went from being, at that point, we were about 14, and we instantly jumped to around 400 people just knocking on the door. Somebody had said, we'll make you a website. Different companies were coming to us at that point saying, listen, would you consider giving away our stuff? We've got tickets to this, we've got extra of that. And it kind of blew up. And from a telephone perspective, it turns out there's not really much difference. If I'm having a phone call with you and I'm asking for 1 can of beans or 10,000 cans of beans, doesn't make any difference. If you're the bean man, you got loads of beans, you don't care. Like literally, you don't care. Like we think of it as the farmer, because you've got 1 can of beans and your shop's got a few cans and your wholesale, but somewhere in the world there's a bean factory. And in the bean factory, the bean farmer, he's got a totally different relationship with the product to you or me, who might have 1 or 2 in our cupboard. And we work that out really early. And that's why we do these big events, because we can talk these companies into giving away all this stuff. And often they come and help us give it away, and they get their staff down and they enjoy the kind of anarchic fun of just giving stuff to people, no strings attached. We don't judge what other people are doing with the stuff. We don't really ask for donations from people. Like when you contacted me, the primary thing I wanted to know was like, will this make you happy? Is this something, Elroy, that will put a smile on your face if we do this? And and then it was like, it turns out they do amazing work, but that wasn't my first inclination. I don't sit there kind of trying to work out the worthiness of other people in terms of kind of the work that I do. I'm up for helping whoever comes through the door, and it's kind of on them to make the most of that kind of thing. And recently, and if you guys want to Google, there's infinite kindness offensive videos and loads of events. But the recent one, we saw this whole C19 thing coming about, and we started to get phone calls from some of the bigger companies that we work with because they had a lot of stock. And I managed to place that stock with a lot of different charities. And then one lot of stock that I couldn't place was the Lush Foundation stuff, all the Lush soaps and the bath bombs and the shower gels, and they're amazing people at Lush. So that's where the Lush C19 kindness offensive came from. So for the past kind of 2.5 months or so, I got a wonderful company, Castle Gibson, via a group who do location work, who do locations for films. They gave us a film set to work on. And we filled the film set up with soap and stuff, and we've been giving it away to everyone and anyone who comes along. Hopefully doing a lot of good. We've asked people who they're helping and stuff, and apparently we've reached over 100,000 people. And we're going to be finishing that particular project, the latest Kindness Offensive, next Thursday. We're going to give away the last of it. We're going to do a nice round trip around where my local area, Camden. We're going to youth centers and food banks and stuff. And there's going to be a merry little crew, and we're going to give away the last of the soap. So that's the kind of medium-sized story of the Kindness Offensive.
So, dude, first of all, this is amazing, and I don't need to tell you that, but you cover so much of what you said, and it all started from a few pizzas, getting a few pizzas for free, right?
That's right.
And so I just want to, there are a few questions I have. And first of all, I want to say thank you to everyone that's locked in, that's listening. Hey, everyone. Heather, Leanne, I can see Mary there. I can see Fee, Amanda. Ultimately, this is David Goodfellow from the Kindness Offensive, and he's helping people, literally just giving people what they want. No strings attached. If they need something, they can have it. And so a friend of mine posted on their page that they have a charity they're running around locally trying to help people with food and so on that can't leave their houses. And I said, Dave, mate, how do we get some stuff to my friend? And he said, look, just give me her details, we'll connect the dots. And it was as simple as that. She turned up with a van, filled the van. It sounds very dodgy, but it's all above board, trust me. And that was that. And so I was really fascinated by this because from a business point of view, I spend a lot of time encouraging the people that I coach to think about how you can give into people's situations so you can create a transformation in their lives. You know, because often we set out to run a business or to do anything and just think from our own perspective. And this whole initiative, this whole thing of just being kind and thinking about what other people need, often to some people sounds like a hippie alien thing that could never happen. It's all a dream because the world's falling apart. And here's you sometimes struggling to give things away because you have so much of it. I just want to say, please make note, the world, there is kindness out there and there are kind people still. Okay, let's not just focus, let's not ignore the stuff that's going on, but let's recognize, take a moment to connect with the amazing, positive, kind acts people are still pushing into the world. So let's go back a little bit. And I want to ask you about this process because some people are so afraid to ask for help. They don't want to seem weak. They don't want to seem silly and, you know, like there's something wrong, like they're less or begging or lower. How do you give to somebody, or how do you ask them what they need without making them feel small? And how do you then do that and make it sustainable? Because it takes energy, it takes time as a business and so on to make it work.
I guess at the heart of it, the truth I try and express and kind of and work with is to try and be a source of the thing that I need the most. So I need help. Yeah, I'm a human being, and I recognize that there's lots of different areas where I'm the guy who needs to ask that question. And like you're an aspiring coach, yeah. You're there twice a week helping people learn things. You know, I ask you all the time, how do you do this? How's that? I ask for help, and I guess for me in my journey, I feel more comfortable asking for help because I'm free to give help. And so being a source of what you actually need is actually a really powerful way of understanding that mechanism. So by offering help freely and by making that a kind of discipline, that if I don't help everybody, but I'll hit everybody's rap. Yeah, if you need something, and also I'll try to engage with the people around me and try to kind of douse and kind of feel, how can I add benefit to this? And by being alive to that, or the more that I am alive to that, the easier it is for me to ask for help because I'm in the spirit of that. And the same goes for something like forgiveness. Like, you know, I make a lot of mistakes. You know, how many mistakes have I made today? What time is it? Do you know what I mean? I'm on about 3 an hour, right? So I'm someone who needs a lot of forgiveness. And I need that from people. I make mistakes. I'll probably mute you before this is over and not mean it. Forgive me, right? that makes it easier for me to ask for forgiveness when I need it. When I make a mistake, I give that forgiveness out to people. So if you do something, I find myself quick to try and work out, okay, how can I be a source of what I need? And that for me is a discipline, and it's not something that I am at all the master of. And I can be halfway through forgetting the best side of myself before I snap back into it. A bit like meditation for me. Like, I'm lucky if I meditate for 10 minutes, if I really manage it for 2, right? And the other 8, I've got all kinds of the circus in my head. So I was trying to pull it back. But that for me is the discipline. Try and emanate, try to identify what I personally need from the world, and try to be a source of that as much as I can be.
That's really interesting. Thank you. And what are you saying to people, dude? Like, what are you saying? What are you saying, bro? Like, we need
on the telephone. On the telephone.
Like, yeah, I need that pizza.
So what am I saying? Well, the art of phone whispering involves projecting yourself to the finish line and imagining what that state of mind is. Yeah, so not quite like explaining jiu-jitsu in 2 minutes, but kind of. I'll give you the bare basics of it. What we try and do on our best phone calls is imagine what it would be like if the phone call went really well. Yeah, how would you feel about that? You'd feel very grateful, wouldn't you? Straight away, you can imagine that you'd feel grateful. You would feel very happy. Yeah, you'd feel a lot of warmth and a lot of positivity towards the person on the end of the line. So I like to begin at the end on my phone calls. I like to begin with, thank you so much. I think you're awesome. I like to open with that at the very beginning. And there's a magic to opening with the ending. There's a magic to kind of projecting that feeling. And best way I can explain it in a kind of potted sense is that we live in an emotional universe. It sounds like a linear thing, kind of academic, what are the exact words? Let me take notes. It ain't kind of like that. It's about getting a vibe going. It's about getting a feeling going where you already know you're getting the pizza. That's over. Yeah, that's happened. You're in the free pizza place, and now how do you feel about that? But imagine that. Really imagine that. Grab that with both hands. Be the guy getting the free pizza. Now pick up the phone and begin with the thank you. And the rest of it kind of comes naturally. And we trained for a long time to do it. And there are what we call the phone carters. There are lots of different approaches to that. And it's become a little bit of a kind of parlor game that we play amongst my mates and stuff. But the crux of it is about remembering that people are emotional, and that at the heart of most people, there is a desire to be loved and to love. And if you can just forget about everything else, forget about the fact that they might work for Nestle or Barclays Bank, or there might be an MP for a party you didn't vote for. There's a lot of reasons why you can ignore the fact that they're loving and they want to be loved. Yeah, we all have a lot of reasons that we can come up with for not entering a situation with that as your primary understanding. But if you can enter a situation with that as your primary understanding, whoa, all bets are off. You end up with some very unusual receptions that you get from people. If you're prepared to go in at that frequency on the telephone call, and for that matter, in life in general, if you can enter at that frequency, it's amazing the frequency that you get back. Things tend to echo what you put out. And in that sense, the universe is malleable to a certain extent. It's prepared to give you what you expect of it.
That's brilliant. Thank you for that. I want to share some messages. Mary saying, I love this. Heather is saying, always good to let go of negative energies, always. And also, I love that idea of starting with an ending. I have someone that does that in my life all the time. It feels so wonderful. That is fascinating. This feeling, the sense of having it already. Don't worry about that. You have it already. And then it's about connection, right? You're connecting.
My experience, it's hard to talk about this without sounding a bit silly sometimes, but I think there are a number of almost invisible controls for the universe. You know, like the way you use your phone, you dial a number, yeah, and there are some unseen ways that you can interface, and they're emotional. And there's an emotional interface that you can vibe with people in a certain way if you choose to. And if you work on that level, some really interesting things can happen. And we kind of put that to a kind of practical application by deciding, right, we'll fundraise for whoever, for whatever, to get them the resources they need. And there's incredible power to that as well. And that's another reason that we use phone whispering in the way that we do, and it's developed like it has, because there's an incredible, force that you can unleash if you decide you're going to help someone. The universe wants you to help people. Do you know what I mean? You get a lot of backing from people. If you say, listen, I'm here to help this guy or that lady, the world goes, well, okay, maybe I should join you in doing that. You join me in doing it. You're like, wow, okay, he's helping people, I want to help people with him, kind of thing. But that's the way things work. They kind of it has that snowball effect in my experience.
So how do you deal with people that say no?
A lot of people say no. You just got to respect their no, and go on to the next one. The way I kind of view a no is it takes me closer to a yes. And ideally, a lot of the no's lead to the yeses. So, for example, when I'm on a phone with a company, and I've pulled every trick out of the bag that I can. Yeah, I've appealed to their empathy. I've talked to everyone in every department, and it just turns out no is the answer. No. Okay. So what I reason on that call is you work. So if I'm talking to, let's say, a company about non-perishable foods, that's an item which I do a lot of phone whispering for the food banks and stuff. The way I reason it is, okay, I'm having a good conversation. I know with me, no one's angry. They're all being very friendly. I'm a nice guy to have on the telephone. I make sure about that, right? I get myself into the phone zone and I'm having a good conversation, right? So I say, hey, listen, I appreciate the no. Now, who do you think might give me a yes? Help me, please. Now, you work in the industry. What other companies might do this? Or what other departments might help me out here? Have you worked somewhere in the past? And I try to get the most out of the phone call that I can. I say, listen, I totally respect the no. We've just established now that you're not my guy for this. Who is my guy for this? Help me find the guy. And I try to get the most out of every phone call, and I try to make an ally out of that person to the best of my ability. Because I think that every person knows so much more than you could ever hope to understand. So I try and say, hey, listen, I'm a bit lost here. I try to get myself into what I call the lost key state of mind. Yeah. So everyone's lost their keys, right? And what's the first thing you do when you lose your keys? You go, is it my pockets? No, all right, maybe it's over there. And then you start walking around your house and you think, well, I did get a drink earlier, so maybe it's in the fridge. And you start looking, you trace back where you went. The longer you don't find your keys, right, the more abstract the places you start looking. It's true, right? You start, maybe the dog picked them up and they took them next door. So you're looking over I never went next door, but the dog, you never know, right? And maybe the little baby, maybe they put them in you keep looking. One thing never happens when you've lost your keys. You never think, maybe I never had any keys. That never happens. You never doubt the fact that you had keys. You had keys. So I get myself into a lost key state of mind. So a no is fine because my keys aren't there. No, mate, your keys aren't here. Cool. That's really valuable information. Please help me find my keys. Where is the food? Where is the guitar? Where are the toys? Help me find these because I know they're there. I know it's there. Help me do that. So that's how I deal with a no.
That's great. And that's like a very kind of logical almost way of approaching it, really rewiring a whole mindset around dealing with no, dealing with what rejection means and so on. Because often we connect no with, you don't want me and all that kind of stuff, which is painful. Nobody wants to be rejected. We all want to feel loved. We all want to feel, like you said, supported and so on. So when you say, well, I know it's there. It's there. I just need to figure out where it is. I just need to find it. I just need to figure out how to get it coming to me and landing in my lap.
If you give people the opportunity as well to help you, like often a no, it boils down to we haven't got what you want, for when we're doing the phone whispering. But if you then cast that person in a negative role as somehow your adversary or someone who's looking down at you, it's easier to become a productive partnership of any kind. You've just terminated any positive outcome at all. So listen, not every no is someone condemning you to being a bad person. There's a million different reasons for no. I like to think it's part of my journey to yes. You know what I mean?
Well, we had a conversation with Professor here on Gracie, and he was saying that a lot of the time, a person's decision isn't anything to do with us at all.
True that.
And
Yeah.
we often personalize. It's nothing to do with us. It's nothing personal. If we could find a
Yeah.
way to
Yeah.
realize that, that
Yeah.
also helps, right?
Absolutely. And it's pretty, to you and anyone listening, like I don't own all of this 24 hours a day on every call. So what I'm talking to you about is my ideals. Yeah. And listen, sure enough, no, oh my God, I really wanted that. I thought I was so close. And sure, that happens a lot as well, right? But the ideal, like the meditation, I try to come back to the ideal is, okay, well, listen, this isn't exactly what I wanted from this phone call, but maybe there can be some other things that can happen from this phone call. Maybe there's some other opportunities that can be explored. And like you say, there's a million different reasons why people might say no. And it's worth hanging out on the phone with them to try to work that out, and not to try and take everything so personal. If you do, you can end up being very depressed about a lot of stuff you shouldn't be depressed about.
So I want to share. Amanda's said nothing gives rewards quite like giving does. Not everyone recognizes the joy it brings to do good things. Hello, Aisha. Aisha just joined us. I kind of want to just do a little recap. This is David Goodfellow from the Kindness Offensive, and he's our guest today. And we're really looking at where the kindness is still in the world, and the fact that there are some fabulous people and organizations giving and making a difference. And I'm trying to just shine some light on them to offer some encouragement. So please take this opportunity. If you have any questions, please ask absolutely anything. Absolutely anything. David is our guest this month, and we're doing a guest every month here privately in the Ready for Dreams group, and then the interview will be available on YouTube sometime afterwards. So please ask all you like and all you can whilst you can. David, could you please remind us of the number of people you've helped so far and the kind of differences you've been making in people's lives?
The most recent project that we've done, the C19 response, has reached over 100,000 people. Responsible, the group as a whole, we've fed over 5 million people since we started. We've reclaimed 12 buildings across London. We've run community centres, libraries, business incubation centres, all buildings provided rent-free, bill-free by the owners who are trying to do some good in their community by housing us in those buildings to do these projects. We hold the world record for the largest ever toy donation ever made in the history of man. I won a Points of Light award for that. Our Christmas events are the largest in the country. We give toys to every child in a London hospital, a lot of orphanages, a lot of after school clubs, a lot of underprivileged kids who don't get much for Christmas. So we do that once a year. We gave away over 100,000 books from one location. We've done a lot of stuff. The scale is really beyond something which I, even at this point, can fully get my head around. I'm often, when these events are happening, I'm often with a clipboard and a telephone, slightly removed from the actual activity, making sure that lorries have the right, pump trucks on them, that people are wearing the right health and safety stuff, that the insurance is paid. There's a whole kind of load of stuff which is, it ends up becoming my job and the other organizers' jobs. So, often we'll be in the middle of something and I won't really understand what's happening. I remember there's one event we did with XL Catlin, and we knew it was the biggest toy event ever, but I hadn't actually seen all the stuff coming in. I was in an office across town organizing it. So I went across and it kind of struck me as I walked in the building, like, whoa, this is nuts, man. There were a couple hundred people all sweating, struggling to get this stuff off of lorries and stack it up and everything. So it's a weird thing. But also one of the things that I quite like doing is helping individual people. And we often get requests, or I often kind of find people who need a little bit of assistance in their own lives, need a little something that means something to them. So I've been very privileged. It's kind of like my magic trick ends up putting smiles on people's faces, and it's nice to see those smiles, and it's nice to kind of give someone what they need in life, and be that a guitar or sometimes a computer or something like that, and just say, all right, you really need this. Oh yeah, I really need it. There you go, have that, and then just walk off. And that's a rare moment. You don't get to do that a lot in life, and I'm very lucky that I get to do that quite a lot in what I do. And give people what they like and what they need, and I feel very privileged to get to do that.
So how does somebody get the help of the Kindness Offensive?
So you can write us an email, but I'd be candid, if anyone watching this, you better write a good email. We get pounded. Our inbox gets a lot of requests. So, you do something that kind of, grabs. I'll be candid, because we don't have a secretary or a robot. It's me and a couple other guys. So we you know what I mean? Like, entertain us a little bit, please. But people write messages to us. But also, start off with, maybe to answer that question, it might be worth pointing out what the Kindness Offensive is. Yeah. So we're not a registered charity. We're not a public limited company. We're not a CIC. In fact, if you Google it right now, you'll find that we ain't nothing. I'm the Kindness Offensive. Callum, my mate, Robert, we're just some guys who do this, right? So how does the Kindness Offensive? We spot people who we feel like we want to help. One way or another, people come into our orbit, and I'm alive to the fact I'm watching, and often people, I now when I go into new scenarios, I tend not to say what I do, because I tend to get like people coming at me, oh, we need this, and what about that? And I kind of let it sit for a minute. But I try to be alive to what good I can bring to a situation. I do read the emails that come in. If I see one that I can help with, then I try and help out with it. Often things begin with a single email, someone saying, I know about this cause, I know about this woman, I know about this man, this street, whatever it is. And then we start investigating that and having that conversation. And that's been the kernel of a lot of the bigger events that we've ended up doing, is kind of the beginnings of people coming to us and saying that. But basically, I try my best to observe what's going on. And if someone asks me for something, I seriously consider it. And if I feel I've got what it takes to do something with that. And I quite like a challenge. So at this point, if someone asks me for something that I haven't phone whispered before, I bring it back and I go, listen, I don't know why, but this guy wants a 10-foot gnome. All right, I've never done that before. Let's have a go at that. I've got a thing about phone whispering televisions and phones. So if someone needs a television or a phone that speaks to me, I like phone whispering televisions and phones for people. I've given away more TVs than I know what to do with, kind of thing. But yeah, listen, if you look online, we have a constitution that's got 3 points, and basically it says we're going to be helpful and harmless and do whatever we want. So we don't hurt no one, we don't ask for anything from anyone, and we try to help whoever appeals to us at that moment, whoever we think we can do something with.
So as we wrap up, as we come to the end of our interview, I just have a few more questions from the group. Sure. Mary is asking, how do you support yourself to do this? It's personal, so if you don't want to ask, so you don't have to. Sure. But how do you support yourself doing this? Because it sounds like a lot. And how are you looking after your health?
Okay. So sometimes the Kindness Offensive has paid money. There have been times when some of the bigger corporations have written checks for us to deliver projects because they've taken a long time. In that sense, the Kindness Offensive has on occasion paid bills and stuff. And we have had grants occasionally come in to cover some of the projects we do. And also, I'm a master phone whisperer. So I can get a lot of the things that I would normally buy. I just get them for nothing. So that's also.
Did you blag a house? Did you blag a house on a sports car?
Well, it's funny you should say that. We phone whisper. We have phone whispered 12 buildings across London, and I have spent the majority of the last decade living bill-free and rent-free in buildings that have been provided by the Kindness Offensive. And the Kindness Offensive we have a Routemaster double-decker bus called the Kinder Bus. You can look it up online. A 1985 ambulance we called a Fumbulance, and a giant van, a 7.5 ton DAF van called Van Kind. So it's not quite a mansion and a sports car, but it's our version of that.
That's
And how do
brilliant.
I look after my health? For me, okay, so one of the big breakthroughs for me in terms of health has been intermittent fasting. I stumbled on that about 6 months ago, and I've felt really good intermittent fasting. So I eat breakfast, I eat oats and berries and nuts and stuff in the morning only. That's what I eat for breakfast, and then I have a killer meal for lunch where I pretty much, it doesn't matter if I have seconds or thirds, I hammer that, but then that's it. I don't eat again. So now I ate about 2 o'clock and I'm not going to eat again till tomorrow morning. I feel much sharper since I started doing that. I've lost a tremendous amount of weight, so much weight that I have most of my clothes don't fit me anymore. I'm gonna have to go and buy new clothes. I've lost a tremendous amount of weight. So that's been super duper positive for me. My wonderful long suffering girlfriend has introduced me to the joys of walking. And I find that they in therapy they call it bipedal motion therapy. I heard that term, that was kind of cute. But I find walking it has been a gateway for keeping me healthy. I would like to walk for at least an hour a day. I'm very blessed that I got a couple of nice parks. I can get to Primrose Hill in about 15 minutes and Hampstead Heath in about 15 minutes. So I like to walk. And when I was allowed to, when the government said it was cool to do it, I went to jiu-jitsu twice a week, and had my ass handed to me in a hat. So that was also part of my fitness regime. Yeah.
Nice, man. Well, listen, David, it's been great having you as a guest. I
Well,
want to
thank
thank
you
everyone.
so much for having me.
Uh,
I've got to say, you come off as one of the most charismatic, warm-hearted, lovely people I've encountered in a long time, and it's a real privilege that you invite me, into your home here, into your thing, and share my story with your people. I'm really grateful, man. It's been lovely to get to talk to you a bit. One day, I'd like to. I don't have a thing to interview people, but I'd like to talk to you about your life and some. I get little snippets. You sound like a fascinating character, man. And who could listen to that voice all day, right?
Man, thank you so much, man. And I'm happy to help. Anything you need, let me know how I can help, and I'm happy to.
Thank you so much. It's been a real privilege. And thank you all for listening out there. Thank you.
So, David, you stick around. We're going to say bye to the group and we'll continue speaking. Thank you again, everyone in Ready for Dreams. As you know, we have a special guest with us every month and you can ask questions. And I hope it's helpful to you in your personal situation. If you have any recommendations about people you'd like us to invite, if you'd like us to speak to someone in particular, let us know. We'll try and reach out to them and get them on the show and all that good stuff. So, you have a great rest of the week, a great weekend, and I will see you very soon. Much blessings.
Keep it surreal.